Hey everybody, my name is Kevin. This is a financial lifestyle channel. And today I want to answer the question why, specifically for men, why it's so important to spoil your woman and how it will save your pockets in the long run. So, interesting enough, I've been doing a couple of episodes here about relationships and how that ties to finances. And as a man of God, if you didn't know, that's my biblical foundation. My spiritual foundation is the word of God, not a particular church or denomination. And so today I'm going to be coming from that perspective. I am hoping I don't come off as preachy, but I do have references for my examples, right? And I also implore you to also go out and to look at references for yourself. Don't just believe what I'm saying just because I'm here on the internet, right? Does that make sense? So one of the things I want to talk about is why for men, especially when you are in the courting phase and the dating phase, why it is so important to spoil your woman. And here's the quick answer to this. Spoiling your woman will either bring the queen out of her or it's going to bring the little girl out of her. Those are the two options. And so I'm going to give you some biblical examples here, right? We're going to look at Adam and Eve. For one, from a man's perspective, God has given man everything. God has spoiled me as a man. And so I'm going to do my due diligence, right, to make sure that I capitalize on that leverage of what God has given me in terms of resources, my time, my energy, my money, everything, right? Because I'm then going to attach my last name to a woman. And I'm going to bring her into my kingdom. And she's going to be a benefactor of what God has blessed me with, right? He spoiled me, so I'm going to spoil you. That's kind of the logic. So let's go back to Adam and Eve, right? God took Adam after he created him and placed him in a garden that was already furnished, right? It had plants, it had vegetation, it had animals, it had gold, bendulum, it had water, it had everything. Right? He lacked nothing except for one thing, and that was he didn't have a helpmeet, right? And a helpmeet was key because God gave him a purpose. He says, I want you to multiply, right? To be productive, to grow and multiply, right? And so that was incomplete for Adam at a certain point, a certain season, right? But instead, God is telling him, take care of the garden. So one of the explicit instructions that God gives them is to name the animals, right? I'm gonna present the animals to you, whatever you give them, whatever name you give them, that his name shall be. And especially in a lot of different cultures, you know, I'm Nigerian, African cultures, names have importance, names have meanings, right? So it's very important. So fast forward to the creation of Eve. She comes out of man, hence why when she's presented to Adam, just like the animals, he gives her a name. He says, woman, for you came out of man, right? And you're going to be my wife. You know what I mean? And this is my helpmeet and help me meet the purpose that God has given us, which is to grow, multiply, subdue the earth, right? It's so interesting that now they all have access to everything through Adam and then through God, right? The devil tricks her, right? The Bible never says that the devil tricked Adam. It always says that the devil tricked Eve. And the trick here was very simple, and it's something that a lot of women deal with to this day. If I give you a sense that you're not enough or that you're lacking something, I can then create a path where you start basically fulfilling your own destruction. You start sabotaging yourself, right? That's what she did. The devil questioned Eve and saying, is that what God said? God said you can't partake of the fruit. He gave her a little spiel. He talked to her in her ear to make her like, you know what? Maybe you have a good point. Maybe we misunderstood what God was saying. And she partook of the fruit from the forbidden tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? Adam then partakes of the same tree, but he's not tricked. He basically is obliging to his wife. And then when they get in trouble, he's going to blame his wife. All that spoiling that God did for Adam Because of Adam's sin, God had to remove that and says, now you're not a benefactor of that. So if you don't have it as a man, you can't share that with your woman. You can't share that with your children, right? And what you are going to share is discord. That's why we were born in sin and shaped in iniquity. That comes from Adam, not from Eve. So let's give you a good example, right? Another bad example. So this is the example of why you need to spoil your woman, because in that particular example, it brought the little girl out of Eve, right? It didn't bring the queen out of her. And it also then influenced him, Adam, to then bring the little boy out of him, to just say, I'm obliged to whatever she wants, right? To make her happy. That's why I'm never on board. This is a very demonic message that's hitting in very like soft messages. And like, for example, like happy wife, happy life. I don't believe in that at all, because you can see an example where he's like, well, I made her happy, right? And be like, yeah, but to what expense? Because she's going to turn around and look at you as a man and say, like, I was in my feelings. Like, why'd you listen to me? Like, you hear from God, you knew God's instruction. I look to you for guidance. Like, why would you fall to my level of understanding when you should be rising above that? Yeah, I may have got an attitude, or yeah, I may have got snappy with you, but I would have appreciated in the long run if you would have told me, hey, love, you're not right in the situation. This is incorrect, right? We give an example of where we have a man that actually stands on God's business and does that, right? So the next example I have is from the book of Esther with King Xerxes and Queen Vashti. That was his first wife. King Xerxes, he's the king over 127 provinces, different cultures, different languages, different resources like spices, gold, silver, horsemen, whatever you could desire. This man had it all. So therefore he had all the spoil, right? Some of those things maybe were through war. So, how he attained them. Some of those things were through, strategic partnerships. Whatever means he got those things were his, right? And having a queen meant she had access to those things through him, right? This is where Queen Vashti, look what she does, right? You're spoiled to the point where he's having a party for 6 months, and then he has another party for a week, 7 days, right? You got to have money when you can have two parties at the same time. So there's a party for the men and a party for the women, right? I'm just using my imagination here. The party for the women is probably like a pampering session, right? You inviting all the women, not only in the palace, but also in the community, but like come out to the palace, hang out with the queen, enjoy what the queen gets to enjoy. She gets to enjoy pampering, the royal jewelry, etc., etc., etc. On the very last day of this party, King Xerxes says, hey, I want you to come out and present yourself to the men, wear the royal crown, right? And if you understand anything about, monarchies, like people didn't walk around with their royal jewelry 24/7, right? A lot of that stuff was locked up in an armory. So, and also it's heavy, right? It's not really functional. You're talking about real gold, real stones, real ornaments, right? And also security, right? You want that stuff to be locked up. We bring it out on special occasions. Very simple request, right? You're spoiled with a party. You're spoiled with a palace. You're spoiled with having your own party, right? And yet, in response, instead of the queen showing up to the king's request, the little girl showed up, and she refuses to show up. Long story short, what happens? After consulting with his men, with his board, they're like, we got to kick her out. And we have to kick her out on the premise that what she's doing has an influence on other people in a negative way. She got to go. That disrespect, that attitude, you asked for something very simple. She was spoiled, and given the moment to present herself as a queen, she showed up as the little girl. Little girl got to go, right? King Xerxes stood on business in a way that Adam did not. He didn't succumb to her and say, well, dang, this has been my wife. She understands my business. She understands how I run things. Like, maybe it's a misunderstanding. And it's not no misunderstanding when you sent 2 eunuchs to approach her. That means you got 2 witnesses that can validate and are putting their lives on the line, because people are known to kill messengers, to say, yo, she refused. So it's serious, right? Like I was saying with Adam, because Adam subjected himself to the sin or the disobedience that Eve did, the punishment and the consequence rest on him. And that's what propagates through him. That's why, once again, I said, we're all born in sin and shaped in iniquity. That's the word says, right? So she's having a party. I'm going to jump into Queen Vashti. She's having a party and all the women are there. And just make some assumptions that word gets around that, the king, basically requested her and she said no. And she probably made a showing about it. Like, whatever. Okay. That disobedience, the same disobedience that Eve had to God's word, Queen Vashti had to King Xerxes' word, to the effect that he said, you know what? Because we're one, the only way for me to isolate myself from this is to annex you, is to remove you. That's the only way. I'll give you an example. You can find mold on bread, right? Visible mold. Some people will pick it out, but people don't understand that once you see visible mold, there's invisible mold still present in the bread. So you got to throw the whole thing out just because you picked and I'm not saying that it's not, you can't still consume it, but if I see visible, I'm throwing it away, right? It's just the rest of it is invisible. So it's the same thing when you're joined with somebody, you're one with somebody. And if that person is doing something and if it's not quickly corrected, you have to annex yourself from that person, because all that person is going to do is going to bring you down. So that's why they mentioned that her influence, right? She's the queen over 127 provinces as well. Her influence is a bad influence. It's a negative influence. Her and her maidens or whatever, they got to go. We never hear from Queen Vashti again. What happens? In her stead, you have Esther. Esther lost both her parents, right? She was primarily raised by her uncle, right? Her uncle presents an opportunity to say, hey, there's a vacancy in the queendom, and I think that you'd be a fitting candidate for that. Not just her, but other young women in that community, right? And that they were coming from all different provinces. So you can imagine that people are coming with their A game. They say, man, you could be the next queen. You think they felt sorry for Queen Vashti? I don't think so. Okay. People's mothers and aunties were like, yo, where's my daughter? Where's my grandchild? I'm gonna make sure she part of this kingdom. She leading this kingdom. At the very onset, just like all the other women, they're spoiled. They're given everything the queen was given. The pampering, the perfuming, the ointments, the purification, the diet, they working out in their Lululemon. You know what I mean? I'm just providing some tongue in cheek here. They're doing everything they need to do so that when the time and moment comes to present themselves, they can present themselves as a queen and not as a little girl. As a man, when you spoil a woman, and it's funny how we hear this the contrary, like the world or culture, I'm speaking like American culture, wants to speak against these things, right? Oh, like that's simping, right? Which I don't like using that word. It has a different meaning, different connotation. And maybe in another video, I might address it more in detail, but that's simping, right? That's basically, trying to impress a woman with your money or with your reputation, early on in a relationship, that could be a red flag to her. Like you want something more. You want to show those things very early on because it's a test, right? And it's an open book test, really, right? It's not a secret. It's an open book test to see, can she handle that, right? And who's going to show up? Let me give you an example. You're driving, right? People are bobbing and weaving through the traffic. People are doing 75 miles per hour in a 35 miles per hour zone, I'm driving. What that's going to do is going to heighten my awareness that I'm like, first of all, I'm like, this is crazy, right? And I need to ensure the safety of myself and everybody else that's in this car, right? I'm on the streets. That's what people do when they're on the streets. She's for the streets. He's for the streets, right? But when I elevate myself and I go through TSA pre-check, I put my luggage on the plane, I take my seat. Now I'm flying above all that. I don't got to worry about other planes bobbing and weaving through the air, right? A lot of people don't know there's actually like lanes in the air, right? Air traffic control will tell a plane to fly different levels and other stuff. That's how they manage a lot of this, the air traffic. But you don't see all that, right? It's a level of this different attitude, a different air compared to the craziness that was going on the ground. And so when you spoil a woman, you're basically taking her into the air. But if you're driving to the airport and you see and it ain't right, you like, you can't board this plane with me. I have to annex myself from you, right? Because I have to maintain a certain level, right? You know, a king likes to touch the people. I like to make sure that I hear the people, but I can't be on the same level as you, right? And this is a quick commercial. And I've noticed this about myself as I've gone, more mature and deeper into my manhood. Any environment that promotes that we're all the same, I remove myself from those environments. There is class, there's levels to everything. We're not all the same, right? Even in heaven, there's hierarchy. What's done in heaven will be done on earth. But somehow people say, hey, we're all the same. We are not all the same. We all have different positions and different seasons for different reasons. There's a reason why that person's a CEO and I'm not. It's an order behind this stuff, but people don't want to follow that. And so the enemy loves discord. The enemy loves confusion, and he uses us as his conduit to breed that and to multiply that in environments. Right. So that goes to say that's why it's so important that, especially for women, you have to show up and be able to know how to handle yourself and conduct yourself when you're being spoiled. You be like, okay, this is what I expect, right? And I also understand that I am showing how I'm going to react when I get revealed to more, because it's not that you show everything to a woman all at once, right? But sometimes you could, and he's like, see how she handles it. For a man, this is why, people have these petty discussions about, who's paying for the dinner, 50-50 or this and that. This is my standpoint on it. You're a man. You got started on a date. You are demonstrating your ability to provide, right? Now, if she does something obnoxious and she decides she wants to buy $100 worth of food, she's not getting a call back from me, right? She doesn't know how to conduct herself, right? I told you, pick something from the menu, be reasonable, pick something that you're going to enjoy. But there's certain things that people do to kind of push those limits, push those boundaries, right? If they care about you, they're going to realize, hey, I'm tapping into our resources. So do I really want to spend $500 on dinner? No, right? I want to be more modest when it comes to how finances are being spent and not take advantage of a situation, right? And I want to be able to conduct myself, because when you do that, when you being exorbitant and you're doing all this and isn't doing that, you're showing the little girl yourself, and you're not showing up as a queen. And same thing with a man. You got to stop showing up as a little boy, right? If you can't afford to take a woman out and pay for the meal, don't take her out. You're not there financially. If you have very little money, why divide that up and put yourself in a worse situation? It's okay to say, you know what, I'm not where I want to be at. Maybe I can offer certain dates in certain places and environments. Sometimes I might gel with her, sometimes I might not. But guess what? I know that my finances are in order, even though I'm not where I want to be. I'm content, but yet I'm striving. Does that make sense? So I said it all to say is that is a litmus test for a lot of relationships. When you spoil a woman and you show her the best time and you show her these different things, And you get to see very early on how she's going to conduct herself. There's a reason why, and I want to use this example, but I'm going to use this example anyway, because somebody had asked me about this before. Like, why do certain athletes date certain people? And I said, a lot of it just has to do with environment. Those people, those women are presenting themselves in those environments, and they are conducting themselves in a certain way. I'm not saying they always conduct themselves in a proper way, because some of these men are showing up as boys, and so the girls are doing the same thing in kind. They're showing up as little girls. But at the same time, you're with somebody that's like, they're used to money. They're used to privilege. They're used to the finer things in life. They know how to conduct themselves versus somebody that don't. And you're like, I can't attach my reputation and my name to somebody that is going to have us, in the news because she don't know how to act right. It doesn't make any sense. You have to cut them off. Women will respect you more when you cut them off for their foolishness. They expect you to stand on business. No matter how they're acting, they'll respect you more. They're like, okay, he's not taking any old stuff. He's not taking that disrespect. So because, Adam accepted that disrespect that he received, and then in turn turned around and disrespected God by also eating of the fruit, even though he wasn't tricked, but he ate of it anyway. God said, everything that I spoiled you with, Adam, you've lost. King Xerxes, he gets to multiply. Esther did everything she was supposed to do. And when the time showed up, she saves her people. And guess what? The kingdom was intact, and the people were intact and preserved, right? Because when she showed up, even though she was young, even though she didn't have the same experiences, even though she grew up in trauma with losing her parents, she showed up as a healed woman and stood on business and showed up as a queen and didn't show up as a little girl. She didn't have to tear down Queen Vashti. She didn't even need to everybody knew what happened, right? Because King Xerxes wrote it into law and said every man shall be the head of his household and every woman shall obey the Lord of the house, which is him. So that's what I got to say about the subject. Men, choose wisely, save your pockets. She acting out of pocket is because you're acting out of pocket. You're the head, you're the leader, right? And, make sure that when you align yourself with showing up as a man when it comes to money, she'll show up as a woman when it comes to money, and you'll see your money go a lot further than if you do the opposite. So if you like this content, like and subscribe. This is like unscripted, so I'm trying to do a little bit more of this type of form factor where it's a little bit more unscripted and I'm just going from the dome. So if you like that, let me know and I'll talk to you later.